G'day ladies and gents, welcome back to another installment of Around the League. Today we are heading down south to Australia, the land down under, to talk about one of the leagues that has kind of taken my heart over the last couple years. This is the AFL. Now this is one of the oldest football leagues in the world. If you're unfamiliar with how Australian leagues football works, it's a little bit like rugby, it's a little bit like American football, and it's a little bit like nothing in between. But as an American, it has kind of grown on me significantly in the last couple of years, especially having a 2-year-old who always asks if he can watch football, and when I turn on American football, he asks for the Kangaroos instead. So, 18 teams which have their bases in certain cities in Australia, but also kind of tour Australia to spread the sport to kind of lesser known areas, specifically with like Darwin and Alice Springs in the Northern Territory. But we're going to talk about all of the primary stadiums that actually play host to hometown clubs today. So for the 2025 season, we're going to start over on the west of Australia. Of course, Australia is a huge country, and we're going to look at Perth. Now, just to the southwest of Perth, you can find the city of Fremantle there. But the Fremantle Dockers also play their games alongside the West Coast Eagles in the stadium known as Perth Stadium, or specifically Optus Stadium. And Optus Stadium is located right there to the east of Perth, kind of on this little knob. Optus Stadium, cricket ground, AFL ground, located right there. Perth Stadium, Optus Stadium, but like I said, home to both the West Coast Eagles as well as the Fremantle Dockers. Let's then go to the east. Of course, Perth is kind of the only major city on the western side of Australia. We're going to go all the way to South Australia to look at Adelaide. Now, Adelaide is, of course, the state capital of South Australia. We zoom in here, and the stadium we're going to first start with is known as the Adelaide Oval. And the Adelaide Oval is located kind of right in the heart of town here, just to the north of what is considered the city centre of Adelaide. There it is right there, kind of the winged U shape. And that is home to both Adelaide as well as Port Adelaide, two separate clubs that play in Adelaide in South Australia. Now, as of recording, there isn't a team in Tasmania, but they are working on that, of course, in 2028. The Tassies are joining the AFL as the 19th club. We're going to zoom in quick just on Launceston and talk about where the Tassies are going to be playing. So zoom in here, and just to the north there you see University of Tasmania Stadium, better known just as York Park. But that is right there in Launceston, University of Tasmania Stadium, soon to be the home of the 19th club in the Australian Football League. Zoom into the north here in Melbourne. There, of course, is Geelong. Geelong has its own club, and if we zoom in on Geelong, we're going to find the stadium just to the south of the city centre, known as GMHBA Stadium. The Cats play right there, the Cardinia Oval, at GMHBA Stadium in Geelong. Move our way up to Melbourne. And in Melbourne, a few different teams call this area its home, including my favourite club we'll talk about in just a second. First one we're going to touch upon is the McG. So if we go just to the east of town here, the largest stadium in Australia, I believe, the Melbourne Cricket Ground. Located right there. This is the home to plenty of clubs: Melbourne Football Club, Richmond Football Club, Collingwood Football Club, Essendon Football Club, Hawthorn Football Club, as well as Carlton Football Club. All play kind of traditional home games there at the McG there in Melbourne. The MCG. We also need to go to Docklands Stadium, better known under sponsorship as Marvel Stadium. That is located just down the river there in the Docklands area of Melbourne. Zoom in here, and this is technically the home stadium for a couple of the ones we just touched upon: Essendon, St Kilda, Western Bulldogs, my favourite club, North Melbourne Football Club, and then Carlton also play some home games here, as well as the Melbourne Renegades in the Big Bash League when we were talking about cricket, but that is a completely different video to talk about. Let's head east then to Sydney. Zoom out here and go over to the currently, as a recording, largest city in Australia, in Sydney. Zoom in here, and first we're going to start with a stadium in the west of Sydney. We got to find the Olympic Park. So if we zoom in here, the Olympic Park should be located just across the way over in this direction. Of course, next to Liberty Grove and Newington, that is Accor Stadium, and right to the north of that is NG Stadium, and that, of course, is home to the Greater Western Sydney Giants, the club that plays in the west of Sydney there. But the more famous stadium in Sydney, of course, is located just to the south of the Opera House. I say just as if it's not quite a bit of a drive. But in this Paddington area, of course, there is the Sydney Cricket Ground as well as Allianz Stadium side by side. And the Sydney Cricket Ground is going to be home in the AFL to a number of teams, including the Sydney Swans. Zoom out and we're going to the north to what is kind of popularly becoming one of the fastest growing areas of Australia. That is the Gold Coast and Brisbane, thanks to none other than Bluey the cartoon dog. And up in kind of the Brisbane area, first stadium we're going to touch upon is known as Carrara Stadium, or under sponsorship, People First Stadium. And this is going to be home to the Gold Coast Suns. So I'm going to zoom in on the Gold Coast area. And this stadium is going to be located just to the west of the city centre, if I can zoom out here. There it is, People First Stadium, another big U shape looking to the north. Zoom out here, like I said, that is home to the Gold Coast Suns. And then we go up to probably one of the more famous stadiums in Australia, in Brisbane. The stadium we're looking for is the Gabba. Zoom in here, there is Suncorp Stadium. It's not exactly the one we're looking for. The Gabba is located, and just to the south of the city centre of Brisbane is the neighbourhood of Woolloongabba, which gives name to the Gabba. Brisbane Cricket Ground, located right there, that is technically the home of the following teams, the Brisbane Bears, which are no longer a club, but then of course the Brisbane Lions of the AFL. So with that, those are all the primary stadiums. There are some touring stadiums in the AFL, but those are all the clubs, all 19 clubs ahead of the 2028 AFL season in Australia. Let me know what you thought of this video in the comments section below. Please rip apart the accent in the comments. It gives me great joy to butcher as many as I possibly can. And let me know what else you'd like to see in this series of Around the League. Hope to see you back on the channel sometime very, very soon.